Thank you so much, and thank you to our distinguished panelists for joining us for this exciting hearing on America in space, future visions, current issues. I represent a district in southeastern Michigan, the suburbs of Detroit, known for its auto industry, known for what we do here on planet Earth, but our robust supply chain is also deeply connected to aerospace. Some of NASA's prime contractors and Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman are responsible for many contracts, many awards, and in fact, we have up to 80 companies in Michigan alone that have helped to build NASA's space exploration systems to the moon, Mars, and beyond. So deeply appreciate the big visions that we have discussed today, particularly as tied to another asset that we here in Michigan appreciate, and that is the technical workforce and the best-in-class workforce. And I know that workforce development and skills training has come up today, along with commercialization, which we'll continue to push on. My first question is for you, Dr. Stoffen. I read through your testimony and appreciate everything that you packed in what is the 5 minutes that you get to do your testimony. And one line in particular jumped out to me: the discovery of extraterrestrial life, as you described, being a defining moment in the 21st century, just as the moon landing was. And for those of you watching at home, I imagine, we have visions of what extraterrestrial life is. Movies tend to define it, but I was wondering, from your scientific standpoint, could you kind of give us a description of what extraterrestrial life might be?
Yeah, and I'm afraid for so many people listening at home, they might be a little disappointed that I'm not talking about little green men, especially if we're looking at fossil evidence of life on Mars, if we're looking under the icy crust of Europa. We're probably talking about microbes, and I'd have to take you back to the fact that life here on Earth evolved in the oceans. It stayed in the oceans for over 1 billion years, and it really didn't get much past single-cell, pond scum algae for a really, really long time, so billions of years to get very complex life. So when we look outward in our solar system, we're really anticipating we're going to find sort of single-celled, very simple multi-celled organisms. So you might say, well, then why are we looking? That's so boring. It's not boring, because we have these fundamental questions. Does it have cell structure that, like our life here on Earth does? Does it have RNA? Does it have DNA? And how can we use that information to better understand life here on Earth?
And what would it mean for us, and I don't know if this was your testimony, I know it's come up today, but what would it mean for us to kind of look to put some sort of colony on Mars or some long-term colonization on Mars?
Mars is really hard, and Peggy can answer this better than I can, but Mars is hard. So when you think of those initial scientists, engineers, doctors going to Mars, think a little bit more like an Antarctic outpost. Mars is tough. There's a lot of radiation on the surface. It's a tough environment for humans. So it's going to start small and grow over time.
And I think that it will be successful if we can take advantage of those resources we can use there. So, because the more we have to send things to orbit, the more expensive it gets. And if we can, make our own oxygen out of the CO2 in their atmosphere. And think about what that might have impacts here on Earth too. But if we can remove the oxygen or the CO2 from the Martian atmosphere and make oxygen, that'll be a huge savings for us. And just that development of making structures, three-dimensionally making structures out of materials that are found there, that will make a plan like that feasible. Otherwise, it's not going to be feasible. It will just take too many launches and too much money to get us there.
We frequently say on this committee that the Science Committee is the best kept secret in Congress, and I think saying make your own oxygen is another example of how that can be the case. With just the last remaining seconds, Mr. Rose, I wanted to get you in here. We really appreciated your comments on bilateral, multinational relationships, and I think that gets important as, even if it's microbes. As we talk about, long-standing presence on Mars, what could you speak to that?
Ma'am, I would say International cooperation is key to everything we do in the future with regards to space, whether that's civil or national security.